The galaxy had watched humanity for centuries and decided they were harmless. Weak. Temporary. That belief died the moment a moon-sized shadow unfolded from nothingness, and every alien sensor went blind at once. Captain Ilara Miles stood motionless on the bridge of the Deep Space Survey ship Aurora Reach. Outside the wide forward viewport, the void stretched endlessly, black, silent, and indifferent. This sector of space was old and empty, the kind of place no empire cared to claim. That was why humanity was here. "Ilara," said Navigator Jonas Cade, his voice low and uncertain. "You need to see this." She didn't turn at first. Human crews had a rule: don't panic until the data panics first. Jonas was good. Too good to panic without reason. "What is it?" she asked calmly. Jonas swallowed. All sensors just reset themselves. That got her attention. She crossed the bridge in long, steady steps and leaned over his console. The screen showed a shape so large that the computer refused to label it. Distance markers flickered. Mass estimates climbed, then vanished. "Run it again," she said. "I did. 6 times. The object wasn't moving. It wasn't emitting energy. It wasn't broadcasting signals. It simply was, a colossal silhouette blotting out the starfield behind it. Something impossible. Lieutenant Myra Solis, head of engineering, whispered, "That's not a planet." "No," Ilara agreed. "Planets don't appear out of nowhere." The Aurora Reach had been drifting through interstellar dark for weeks when the object revealed itself. No warning, no distortion, no ripple in space. One moment there was nothing. The next, there was a structure larger than most moons. And it was artificial. As the ship inched closer, details emerged. The surface wasn't smooth. It was layered, terraced plates, vast geometric patterns, and towers rising kilometers high. Entire cities could have existed on its outer shell. Jonas exhaled slowly. "Captain, if that thing fires a weapon, we won't even know we're dead." Ilara nodded. "If it fires, it doesn't need weapons." Humanity had explored space for just over 200 years. They had colonies, trade routes, alliances, enemies. Compared to ancient alien civilizations, humans were still considered young, clever, but fragile. No one had ever accused them of building this. "Record everything," Ilara ordered. "Full data sweep. Passive only." As data poured in, a strange pattern emerged. The structure wasn't powered down. It was sleeping. 300 light-years away, the galactic Concorde reacted instantly. On the crystal-ringed Council Station Vela Prime, warning lights ignited across chambers older than human history. Representatives from thousands of species froze as alerts flooded their neural interfaces. A structure had been detected. A structure that matched forbidden patterns. High Archivist Threxuel, a being older than some empires, stared at the hologram in stunned silence. He had dedicated his existence to forgotten knowledge. He knew legends most considered myths. "This cannot be human," he murmured. The council chamber erupted. "The humans lie," one delegate hissed. "They lack such technology," roared another. "Then who awakened it?" asked a quiet voice. Threxuel raised a trembling limb. "That is not human construction." The chamber fell silent. "That is precursor class." Fear spread like wildfire. The precursors were not gods, but they were close. Ancient beyond measure. Builders of star-moving machines. Architects who vanished before recorded time. Their ruins were scattered, broken, and silent. No living species had ever found an intact vessel. Until now. And the humans found it, someone whispered. "Yes," Threxuel said slowly. "And worse, it appeared to them." The implication chilled the chamber. Back aboard the Aurora Reach, Ilara felt it before the sensors confirmed it. The ship vibrated. Not violently. Gently. Like a heartbeat waking from a long sleep. "Captain," Myra said, eyes wide. "Power readings are rising across the object. Not hostile, but active." A deep hum rolled through space. Then, Without warning, every light on the alien structure ignited at once. Stars dimmed in comparison. A voice filled the bridge, not through speakers, not through sound, but directly inside their minds. Observation complete. Several crew members gasped. Jonas fell back into his chair. Ilara clenched her jaw. Identify yourself. I am custodian vessel Axiom Eternal. The name carried weight. Purpose. Caretakers detected. Ilara exchanged a glance with her crew. You have the wrong species, she said carefully. We are human explorers. A pause. Long, thoughtful. Species designation irrelevant, the voice replied. Criteria met. Myra whispered, Captain, the ship just classified us as something. Caretakers of what? Ilara asked. The stars outside the viewport shifted. Space bent. Far beyond known human territory, points of impossible light awakened, one by one, then thousands. Of the fleet, the voice said. Jonas stared at the incoming data. Captain, I'm detecting objects. Everywhere. Deep space. Intergalactic void. Ilara's breath caught. How many? Jonas laughed weakly. Enough to make the galaxy very nervous. On Vela Prime, panic became chaos. Dozens of ancient sensors screamed as dormant signatures ignited across the universe. Precursor beacons. The fleet was waking. And humanity, young, reckless humanity, stood at its center. Threxuel whispered words no one had spoken in millions of years. The caretakers have arrived. Ilara stood tall on the bridge as alien war fleets began emerging from hyperspace around her tiny ship. She felt fear. She felt wonder. But more than anything, she felt ready. Ilara Miles watched the void around the Aurora Reach fill with ships that looked like knives made of starlight. They arrived in tight formations, sleek, deadly, and confident. Hulls marked with the symbols of the Galactic Concord, the oldest alliance in the known galaxy. Their warships were built for one purpose, to end arguments quickly. And right now, every one of them was aimed at a single human survey ship that didn't even carry a proper battle cannon. Captain, Jonas said, voice strained, we're surrounded. I count 200, no, 300, more dropping in. Ilara didn't answer right away. She kept her hands behind her back, posture calm. Humans had learned something early in space. Fear spreads faster than any virus. If the captain shakes, the whole crew breaks. Myra leaned close and whispered, we can't outrun them. I know, Ilara whispered back. So we won't try. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as a new presence settled in their minds. Cool, ancient, and patient. Conflict probability, high. Custodian vessel Axiom Eternal spoke like a machine that had studied war for 3 billion years and found it boring. Ilara clenched her jaw. What do they want? Control. A cold answer. A warship at the center of the alien formation opened a channel. Its holographic projection filled the bridge, an alien commander with gray-blue skin, 4 eyes, and a face carved like stone. His uniform was sharp. His posture screamed authority. I am Admiral Corvée of the Concord Fleet, the alien said. Human vessel. Power down and withdraw. You are trespassing on protected heritage. The artifact is now under Concord jurisdiction. Jonas muttered, protected heritage? They didn't even know it existed until we found it. Ilara raised a finger, silencing him gently, then stepped forward. This is Captain Ilara Miles, Exploration Corps, she said, steady and clear. We discovered this object, we initiated first contact, and your fleet arrived with guns pointed at us. That is not how cooperation begins. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. Cooperation is not being offered. Compliance is. Ilara felt anger spark in her chest. Not hot rage, something sharper. A memory of old human history. Of empires telling smaller nations to obey. Of powerful voices saying the same sentence in different languages. Compliance is not being offered. She did not bow. We will not abandon first contact, Ilara said. This vessel has identified humanity as caretakers. We are trying to understand what that means." The Admiral's expression tightened. "The artifact is manipulating you. Humans are young. Curiosity is your weakness." Ilara's voice did not rise, but it hardened. "Curiosity is why we're still alive." A long silence followed. Alien officers behind the Admiral moved, whispering, calculating. Then the Admiral spoke again, slower now. "Captain Miles, you are standing in the path of a galaxy-wide emergency. Precursor technology has destroyed civilizations before. If you awaken that fleet, billions will die. Withdraw. I will ensure your species is compensated." Compensated. Like a child given candy after being pushed aside. Ilara smiled once, small and cold. "No." The channel cut. Instantly, warnings flooded the bridge. "Captain!" Jonas shouted. "They're charging weapons." Myra's hands flew across her console. "They're locking targeting solutions on us and on the Axiom vessel." Ilara's mind went very still. The alien fleet was about to do something reckless, fire on an artifact older than their entire alliance. The hum from Axiom Eternal deepened. The air seemed to vibrate, even through vacuum, like space itself recognized a sleeping giant had opened one eye. "Caretaker command required," the ship voice said inside Ilara's mind. "What command?" she thought back, heart hammering. "Define response protocol." Ilara realized, with a strange jolt, that the vessel was waiting for her permission. It was not a weapon choosing violence. It was a tool asking its holder what kind of person they were. Ilara swallowed. On her bridge, her crew stared at her like she held the universe in her hands. She thought of Earth, crowded cities, noisy markets, children laughing under gravity and sky. Billions of lives who had no idea this moment existed. She thought of every alien species in those warships, frightened, proud, ancient, and arrogant. Not monsters. Just beings defending what they feared losing. She exhaled. "Defensive only," Ilara said aloud. "No lethal force unless they fire first." The crew blinked. Jonas whispered, "Captain, that's merciful." Ilara shook her head. "It's strategic." Axiom Eternal answered like thunder in the bones. Defensive protocol accepted. Space changed. Not in a bright explosion, no flashy beam, no dramatic sound. It was subtler, and somehow more terrifying. A thin, shimmering veil spread outward from Axiom Eternal, like a transparent ocean wave. It expanded fast, faster than anything physics should allow, washing over the alien fleet. The moment it touched their ships, the weapons' charging signatures vanished. Their systems didn't explode. They didn't burn. They simply stopped. On the bridge, Myra stared at her screen. "Captain, the alien fleet just went dark." Jonas's eyes widened. "They still have life support, bare minimum. But their weapons, engines, targeting, everything else is locked." Ilara felt a cold shiver. Axiom Eternal hadn't destroyed them. It had silenced them. Like a parent taking sharp tools away from children. The alien formation drifted, powerless, surrounding a human ship that couldn't even scratch their armor, yet now held them like insects in a jar. Then Axiom spoke into Ilara's mind again. "This is restraint." Ilara's throat tightened. "You did that without killing anyone." "Caretaker directive. Preserve future." She stared out at the warships floating helplessly, and she understood something deep and unsettling. If Axiom could do this gently, what could it do violently? A new channel opened, this time from Admiral Corvée. His image appeared again, but his posture was different. Less commanding. More careful. "Human captain," he said quietly, "what have you done?" Ilara answered honestly. "I told it to defend." The Admiral's eyes flicked sideways as if reading reports from panicked officers. "You have disabled 300 Concord warships in one action." Ilara leaned in slightly, voice calm. "And I did not fire a single shot." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "You could have killed us." Ilara nodded. Yes. A hard silence. Then she added, I didn't. Because I'm not trying to conquer you. I'm trying to understand what this is, and why it chose us. The Admiral stared at her, and for the first time, his expression looked less like authority and more like fear mixed with something else. Respect. Behind him, his bridge crew moved like ghosts, working systems that barely functioned, patching manual overrides, trying to regain even a fraction of control. He finally spoke, voice low. You are placing the entire galaxy in danger. Ilara did not deny it. Instead, she asked a question that no one expected. Admiral, do you know why the precursors left? He hesitated. Then, slowly, he answered. No. Ilara nodded. Neither do we. She glanced at Myra, then Jonas, then the rest of her crew, humans in worn uniforms, standing between ancient powers and a sleeping fleet of planet-sized starships. And she felt it again, humanity's strange gift. Not strength. Not weapons. The refusal to accept that fear should decide the future. Then maybe, Ilara said softly, it's time we find out together. Axiom Eternal pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Caretakers may invite allies. The alien admiral blinked, as if he had heard that too. You can invite us, he asked. Ilara held his gaze. I can invite you. Or I can leave you drifting here until your council figures out how to beg properly. The admiral's face tightened with pride, then loosened as reality crushed it. Finally, he lowered his head the smallest amount. Not surrender. Acknowledgement. What do you require? He asked. Ilara took a slow breath. Truth, she said. And a promise. No more threats. No more taking what you didn't earn. The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. I can promise that I will listen. Ilara looked toward the ancient ship's towering shadow, stretching beyond sight. And deep in the dark between galaxies, something far larger than the Concord fleet seemed to shift, like a giant turning in sleep. The universe wasn't watching humanity anymore. It was waiting to see what kind of caretakers they would become. The silence after Admiral Corvey's agreement felt heavier than battle. 300 alien warships drifted in powerless formation, their crews fully aware that a single human command stood between them and destruction, or release. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Concord fleet was not in control of a situation it had entered, and at the center of it all floated a small human exploration ship and a planet-sized relic that had chosen them. Ilara Miles stood with her hands clasped behind her back, eyes fixed on the endless hull of Axiom Eternal. The ancient vessel glowed softly now, no longer dormant, no longer silent. It felt aware, not aggressive, not friendly, patient. Captain, Myra said quietly, Concord engineering teams are requesting limited system access. Manual control only. They want to stabilize life support across their fleet. Ilara nodded. Authorize it. Keep weapons and propulsion locked. Myra hesitated. They'll remember this. Ilara met her eyes. Good. Across the void, Admiral Corvey watched as basic functions returned to his ships, breathing air, internal gravity, heat. His fleet was alive, but helpless. He felt exposed in a way no enemy weapon had ever made him feel. This is humiliation, one of his officers muttered. No, Corvey replied quietly. This is restraint. He looked again at the human captain's image on the holo display. She had power she barely understood, and she was using it like a shield, not a blade. That frightened him more than any superweapon. Inside Axiom Eternal, Ilara felt the presence of the ship more clearly now. Corridors of impossible scale unfolded themselves, reshaping gently to accommodate human movement. Light flowed along the walls like slow rivers of gold. Jonas walked beside her, his voice low. I keep expecting this thing to judge us. Axiom answered before Ilara could. Judgment is inefficient. Jonas jumped. Sorry. Didn't realize you were listening. I am always listening. Ilara stopped walking. Then listen to this, she said firmly. Why us? The corridors stilled. Even the light seemed to pause. "Because you asked," Axiom replied. Ilara frowned. "That's it." "No." A deep vibration rolled through the structure, not threatening, but thoughtful. "My creators searched for successors who would question authority, challenge certainty, and resist final answers." Jonas blinked. "That doesn't sound like most empires." Ilara let out a slow breath. "You didn't want rulers." "No. You wanted caretakers," she said softly. "Yes." Ilara felt a strange weight settle in her chest. Not pride, not fear, but responsibility. Humanity had never been chosen before. Never entrusted with anything larger than its own survival. "What were you protecting the galaxy from?" she asked. This time, Axiom did not answer immediately. Instead, space itself seemed to darken around them. "From stagnation," the ship finally said. "From certainty. From the belief that all paths have already been walked." Jonas frowned. "That doesn't sound like a threat." "It is the most dangerous one." On Vela Prime, panic had shifted into something worse. Confusion. The Concord Council reconvened under emergency conditions. Thousands of delegates argued at once, fear and disbelief echoing through the ancient chamber. "The humans must be stopped," one voice cried. "They have awakened the fleet," shouted another. "They have not fired," a third countered. "They disabled us and showed mercy." High Archivist Threxuel observed in silence. He had watched civilizations destroy themselves for less. "They did what the precursors designed," he said finally, his voice cutting through the noise. "They did not seek dominance. They sought understanding." A delegate sneered. "You sound impressed." "I am terrified," Threxuel replied. "Because the precursors did not leave caretakers to rule us. They left caretakers to change us." The chamber went quiet. Back aboard the Aurora Reach, alarms flared again, not hostile, not defensive. "Something else." "Captain," Jonas said slowly, "Axiom is opening long-range channels. Deep range. Beyond the galaxy." Ilara's heart skipped. "Opening to what?" Jonas swallowed. "To everything." Stars shifted. Not closer, aligned. A map unfolded across the bridge, stretching far beyond known space. Dots appeared where there should have been nothing. Dark regions pulsed faintly. Myra stared at the display. "Those aren't galaxies." Axiom's voice filled Ilara's mind, heavy with age. "The fleet was not built for war." Ilara's mouth went dry. "Then why does it exist?" "To respond." "To what?" she asked. Axiom hesitated. "To the moment when the universe stops asking questions." Silence gripped the bridge. Jonas whispered, "That's not comforting." Ilara felt a chill crawl up her spine. "You're saying there's something out there that ends curiosity?" "Yes." "Alive?" Myra asked. "Sometimes." The implication struck like ice. Not an enemy that destroyed worlds. An enemy that ended exploration, thought, wonder. Cultures frozen. Minds dulled. Civilizations that stopped imagining, and quietly disappeared. Why didn't the precursors stop it themselves? Ilara asked. Axiom's reply was quiet. "They did. For a time." Ilara closed her eyes. "And then?" They realized the solution could not be permanent if it came from them. Jonas frowned. "Why not?" "Because they had become predictable." Ilara understood. The precursors were too perfect, too complete, too certain. And certainty, unchecked, killed progress. "So they left," she murmured, "and waited for someone imperfect enough to adapt." Axiom's lights brightened. "Correct." A secure channel opened from Admiral Corvée. "Captain Miles," he said carefully, "my council is divided. Some demand we take control by force when systems return." Ilara nodded. "And others?" "Others believe," he admitted, that the galaxy may already have changed. Ilara looked at the map still glowing before her, the unknown waiting beyond known stars. "I won't pretend humanity has answers," she said. "We barely understand ourselves." Corvée studied her. "Then why should we trust you?" Ilara smiled faintly. "Because we don't think we're finished." That answer unsettled him more than threats ever could. As discussions echoed across ships and councils, Axiom Eternal sent one final message: soft, deliberate, unavoidable. "Caretakers, a choice approaches." Ilara straightened. What kind of choice? To remain observers, or to step forward? She stared into the star map, at the vast unknown waiting beyond fear and certainty. Humanity had always stepped forward. Sometimes too soon. Sometimes unprepared. But never silent. Ilara nodded once. "Then don't wake the fleet yet," she said. "Teach us first." Axiom's response carried something dangerously close to approval. "Very well." Somewhere far beyond the edge of the galaxy, something ancient stirred, and for the first time in eons, it sensed uncertainty. And uncertainty, as the universe had learned long ago, was humanity's greatest weapon. The galaxy waited. Not in silence, but in tension. Across thousands of worlds, sensors were tuned toward the region of space now labeled the awakening zone. Civilizations paused trade routes, delayed wars, and froze political arguments that had burned for centuries. Everyone was watching humanity. Not because humans were powerful, but because they were unpredictable. Captain Ilara Miles stood in a chamber that should not have been able to exist. The interior of Axiom Eternal had shifted again, forming a space small enough for humans yet vast enough to remind them they were standing inside a machine older than most stars. Light flowed like liquid glass along the walls. Symbols moved slowly, rearranging themselves as if responding to thought rather than command. Jonas broke the silence. "It's adapting to us." Axiom answered calmly. "Adaptation is the first requirement of caretaking." Myra crossed her arms. "Then start explaining. Because right now, the entire galaxy thinks we're about to become tyrants." Ilara nodded. "And they might be right, if we're not careful." The ship paused, as if weighing her words. "My creators feared that outcome most of all," Axiom said. "That is why you were chosen." Ilara frowned. "Because we fear it too. Because you argue with yourselves about it." That hit harder than praise. Far away, on Vela Prime, the Concord Council fractured. Emergency sessions had become shouting matches. Younger species demanded protection. Older empires demanded control. Ancient beings like Threxuel watched patterns repeat, fear leading to domination, domination leading to collapse. "The humans will replace the precursors," one delegate warned. "No," Threxuel replied quietly. "They will do something far worse." The chamber turned toward him. "They will refuse to rule." Confusion rippled. "That makes no sense," someone scoffed. Threxuel folded his long limbs calmly. "Exactly." Back in the awakening zone, Admiral Corvée received confirmation that partial propulsion was returning to his fleet, slowly, deliberately. Axiom was allowing it. Not because it had to. Because it wanted the Concorde to choose. Corvée stood alone on his bridge, staring at the human ship framed against the impossible size of Axiom Eternal. He activated a private channel. "Captain Miles," he said, voice stripped of command rank, "my fleet can leave now. Or stay. You could stop us if you wished." Ilara met his gaze. "I know." "Then why don't you?" She answered without hesitation. "Because fear-based loyalty never lasts." Corvée felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. "You realize," he said slowly, "that some in my council will call this weakness." Ilara smiled faintly. Humans hear that word a lot. Inside Axiom, the lesson began. Not with weapons. Not with power. With failure. The ship projected a series of images, civilizations rising, mastering technology, eliminating disease, ending conflict. Each reached a point of absolute stability. Then stagnation. Art stopped changing. Exploration ceased. Curiosity faded. Thought became ritual. Finally, collapse. Not violent. Quiet. Jonas swallowed. They didn't die from war. They died from certainty, Axiom said. Myra shook her head. So the fleet exists to reset civilizations? No. Ilara looked up sharply. To challenge them. Axiom's lights brightened. Correct. The precursors had not been guardians. They had been provokers. They introduced uncertainty where stagnation ruled. New problems. New questions. New dangers that forced growth. And sometimes, Ilara said softly, that meant letting civilizations fail. Yes. The word hung heavy. Ilara closed her eyes briefly. Humanity had failed many times. Wars. Mistakes. Near-extinction events. But every time, they changed. You didn't want perfect beings, she said. You wanted survivors. No, Axiom corrected. We wanted learners. A warning interrupted the moment. Jonas stiffened. Captain, something's wrong. A region on the star map darkened, not emptiness, but absence. Space that refused to reflect light or data. Myra whispered, that's not natural. Axiom's voice lowered. It has noticed us. Ilara's pulse quickened. The thing you warned us about. Yes. The silence. The name alone felt wrong. What is it? Jonas asked. A consequence, Axiom replied. Born when too many civilizations chose comfort over curiosity. The silence did not conquer. It erased questions. Worlds touched by it lost innovation within generations. Their people stopped wondering why. Then stopped wondering at all. Ilara felt anger rise, not fear. That's not balance, she said. That's extinction with manners. Axiom paused. That is why the caretakers must choose how to respond. On Earth, the message finally arrived. Weeks late. Fragmented. Terrifying. Planet-sized ships. Alien fleets disabled. Humanity labeled caretakers. The United Earth Council erupted into chaos. Some demanded immediate withdrawal. Others demanded total control of Axiom. A few, very few, asked the same question Ilara had. What kind of species do we want to be? Dr. Hannah Rao, a systems theorist, said it best. If we accept this power to dominate, we will prove the silence correct. If we reject it entirely, we may doom others. The answer is not control. It is participation. Humanity voted. Not unanimously, but decisively. Ilara received the response while standing beneath Axiom's glowing core. Jonas read it aloud, voice unsteady. Earth authorizes continued engagement. Condition: no exclusive human rule. Shared oversight. Open knowledge. No empire. Myra exhaled. That's insane. Ilara smiled. That's human. She looked up. Axiom. Humanity accepts caretaking, but not ownership. The ship was quiet for a long moment. Then, laughter. Deep, resonant, and warm. You have passed the final test, Axiom said. You refused guardhood. The star map shifted. The fleet did not awaken. Instead, something else did. Paths. Gateways. Connections between civilizations that had never spoken before. Corvée watched in awe as shared channels opened across the Concorde. Human scientists exchanging data openly, refusing secrecy, refusing dominance. This will destabilize everything, one of his officers whispered. Corvée nodded slowly. Yes. Then he smiled. But maybe that's the point. Far beyond the galaxy, the silence recoiled. It did not understand this response. Caretakers who did not rule. Power shared instead of hoarded. Fear answered with questions. Uncertainty spread. And uncertainty was poison to the silence. Ilara stood small beneath a structure that could unmake stars. For the first time, the galaxy did not see humanity as children. It saw them as something far more dangerous. A species that refused to stop asking why. The silence did not arrive with explosions. It arrived with nothing. No energy spikes. No hostile signals. No warning. Entire sections of space simply stopped responding. Stars dimmed, not because they were destroyed, but because observation itself failed. Sensors returned blank data, as if reality had decided to look away. Captain Ilara Miles felt it like pressure behind her eyes. "Axiom," she said quietly, "it's here, isn't it?" "Yes," the ancient vessel replied. "And it is confused." Jonas stared at the star map, hands trembling. "It's not attacking. It's erasing relevance. Trade lanes. Observation points. Communication relays." Myra whispered, "It's isolating us." Across the Concorde fleet, panic spread. Species that had ruled star systems for millennia suddenly found themselves alone, cut off, unseen, unheard. To the silence, isolation was mercy. No struggle. No resistance. Just quiet ending. Admiral Corvée opened a channel, his voice tight. "Captain Miles, our people are losing connection to entire colonies. They're not dead, but they've stopped responding." Ilara closed her eyes for half a second. "How long?" she asked. "Months," Corvée replied. "Maybe years. After that, history suggests nothing comes back." Ilara turned to Axiom. "You said the fleet wasn't built for war." "Correct." "Then tell me what was built for this." Axiom's response was slow, careful. The fleet was designed to remind the universe how to ask questions. Jonas blinked. "You're saying the silence feeds on certainty?" "Yes." Myra frowned. "Then fighting it head-on would just make it stronger." Ilara felt something click. A human instinct. An old one. "Then we don't fight it," she said. "We confuse it." The Concorde Council demanded action. Weapons. Shields. Countermeasures. Humanity offered something else. Stories. Not metaphorical ones. Actual data streams, art, music, half-finished theories, unanswered questions, arguments, jokes that made no sense out of context. Human scientists broadcast unsolved problems. Children uploaded drawings of things that couldn't exist. Alien species hesitated. "This is madness," one delegate protested. Ilara spoke directly into the council chamber. "It's humanity." Axiom amplified the signal, redirecting the broadcasts across the darkened regions. The silence reacted. Space rippled, not violently, but uncertainly. For the first time, it hesitated. Jonas laughed softly. "It doesn't know what to erase." The silence thrived on predictability, on civilizations that reached an end state. Humanity had never reached one. They argued with themselves constantly, changed direction mid-sentence, built things just to see if they could. The silence recoiled from chaos it couldn't simplify. Axiom spoke, almost gently. "Caretakers, permission to escalate." Ilara nodded. "Do it, but no domination." The fleet awakened. Not as warships, but as mirrors. Planet-sized vessels repositioned across dark zones, projecting complexity back into erased regions. Lost colonies reappeared, not untouched, but thinking again. Asking questions again. The silence began to fracture. It did not scream. It dissolved. Admiral Corvée watched in awe. "You didn't destroy it." Ilara shook her head. "We outgrew it." When it was over, the galaxy was changed forever. No single empire ruled. No god machines enforced order. Instead, something fragile and powerful spread. Curiosity as defense. Creativity as resilience. Questions as shields. Axiom Eternal dimmed, its task complete for now. "Caretakers," it said, "the future is unstable again." Ilara smiled tiredly. Good. Because humanity had never survived in stable worlds. They survived by adapting, by wondering, by refusing to be silent. The galaxy did not celebrate. Not at first. After the silence faded, systems reconnected slowly, like nerves waking after long numbness. Worlds that had nearly vanished returned changed, older somehow, quieter, filled with people who remembered the feeling of almost being forgotten. Humanity expected gratitude. What they received instead was hesitation. Fear had not disappeared. It had evolved. Captain Ilara Miles stood on the observation deck of Axiom Eternal, watching Concord ships depart one by one. They left carefully now. Respectfully. No sudden movements. No weapons charged. Admiral Corvey's flagship lingered the longest. He opened a final channel. "You've saved trillions of lives," he said, "and destabilized every power structure we know." Ilara didn't argue. Both can be true. Corvey studied her. Some in the council want you gone. Others want you crowned. She sighed. Humans don't do crowns very well. No, he agreed. That's what frightens them. The channel closed. Myra leaned against the railing beside Ilara. "We won. Didn't we?" Ilara watched the stars. "We survived. Winning implies an end." On Earth, the cost became clear. Caretaking required attention. Human scientists were suddenly invited, sometimes demanded, to help solve alien crises. Terraforming failures. Cultural stagnation. Political deadlocks that had lasted centuries. Human diplomats were not the strongest or wisest in the room. But they asked questions no one else would. Why do you do it this way? What happens if you don't? Who benefits from things staying the same? Not everyone appreciated that. Trade sanctions followed. Quiet threats. Accusations of manipulation. Dr. Hannah Rao addressed the United Earth Council again. "We cannot become referees of the galaxy," she warned. "Caretaking is not control. It is participation with consent." Earth agreed. Sometimes reluctantly. Sometimes too late. Inside Axiom Eternal, Ilara felt the ship changing. Not dying. Withdrawing. "My active role is concluding," Axiom said one cycle. "The fleet will sleep again." Ilara felt a twist in her chest. Already. The universe must not rely on us. She nodded slowly. That was the mistake before. Yes. Jonas frowned. So what happens if the silence returns? Axiom's lights softened. Then the caretakers must respond as they always have. Ilara smiled faintly. By asking better questions. The galaxy adjusted. Some civilizations embraced the shift, opening archives, encouraging exploration again, allowing uncertainty back into their cultures. Others resisted. A few collapsed. Humanity did not intervene everywhere. That was the hardest lesson. Caretaking did not mean saving everyone. It meant keeping the future possible. On the final day before departure, Ilara stood alone beneath Axiom's core. "You never told us why you trusted us so quickly," she said. Axiom paused. "Because you argued with me." She laughed quietly. "That's it. You did not accept authority, even mine." Ilara nodded. "We've had bad experiences with certainty." Axiom's presence warmed. "So did we." The great ship dimmed further, preparing to return to silence between galaxies. Ilara felt small again. Not powerless. Just human. As Axiom Eternal vanished into folded space, something unexpected happened. It left behind no monument. No throne. No weapon. Just data. Open access star maps. Half-finished theories. Questions without answers. A challenge, not a command. Across the galaxy, young species looked toward Earth, not with worship, but curiosity. And humanity understood the true cost of caretaking. You don't get to rest. You don't get to rule. You only get to keep asking. What comes next? Years passed. Not quietly, but thoughtfully. The galaxy did not return to how it had been before the awakening. It couldn't. Too many assumptions had shattered. Too many truths had been exposed. Most of all, one idea had taken root across the stars. Humanity was not dangerous because of its power. Humanity was dangerous because it never stopped changing. Captain Ilara Miles stood on a small hill overlooking the blue curve of Earth. The air smelled of rain and soil, real things, simple things. After years among stars and ancient machines, gravity felt comforting. She was no longer a captain. Titles had been offered. Positions of authority. Permanent seats on councils older than human civilization. She had declined them all. Jonas joined her, older now, lines at the edges of his eyes. They're calling you the first caretaker again. Ilara sighed. I told them not to. Jonas smiled. They don't know what else to call someone who said no to guardhood. Ilara watched clouds drift slowly. I just did what made sense. That, Jonas said softly, is what scares them. Across the galaxy, the sleeping fleet became legend. Not because it ruled. Because it didn't. The planet-sized vessels remained hidden between galaxies, dormant yet present. Every civilization knew they existed. Every empire understood one thing clearly. If stagnation returned, if curiosity was crushed, if certainty strangled the future, the caretakers might wake the fleet again. Not to conquer, to challenge. Admiral Corvée, now retired, recorded his final address to the Concord archives. We feared humans because they were young, he said. Because they questioned our laws. Because they refused to accept their place. He paused, mandibles tightening. We were wrong. That was not their weakness. The recording continued. They were chosen because they were unfinished. On distant worlds, children of species older than Earth began asking new questions. Why do we still do things this way? What happens if we fail? What lies beyond our borders? Exploration ships launched into unknown regions again, not for conquest, but curiosity. The universe felt louder, messier, alive. Ilara received one final message years later. No words. No images. Just a familiar presence brushing her thoughts like a passing breeze. Caretaker, Axiom Eternal whispered, faint but warm. The universe remains uncertain. Ilara smiled. Good, she replied quietly. That means we're still needed. The presence faded. Not gone. Just trusting. Humanity never ruled the galaxy. It never needed to. Instead, it became something far stranger. A reminder. That progress was not a destination. That perfection was not the goal. That the most powerful force in existence was the willingness to ask, what if we're wrong? And so the galaxy learned its final lesson. Never underestimate a species that questions authority, shares power, refuses certainty, and walks away from absolute control. Because such a species cannot be predicted, cannot be contained, and will never, ever stop reaching for the next unknown. Far beyond the edge of mapped space, the sleeping fleet rested. Patient. Ready. Not waiting for rulers. Waiting for thinkers. And somewhere under a small yellow star, humanity looked up at the night sky, not with fear, not with pride, but with the same question it had always asked. What's next?